Welcome to Front Row. I'm Manohari Abeyesekera, Vice Chairperson of the CIMA Sri Lanka Country Network panel. With me, I have the CIMA Global President, Swientozielskyj. Firstly, let me thank the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce for inviting me and Steve for this discussion. Steve, Sri Lanka has been ranked as a country with a middle income trap. We are an island nation with a 20 million population, with a GDP of 3,800. What would be your thoughts of taking Sri Lanka out of this middle income trap? Would you be able to elaborate on that?
I think to get out of the middle income trap, basically I think Sri Lanka has to decide whether you're going to concentrate on your local markets or are you going to a global framework. If you look at the analysis, trade increases wealth of nations, and that's been one of the wealth creators for the United Kingdom over hundreds of years. So I think where you have closed economies, then that restricts economic growth. But once you open economies, there are different pressures, social economic pressures, competitive advantages. So if Sri Lanka is to continue what it's doing, then it will be in the middle income trap, in my view. If it goes on a globalisation, for example, what we've done on the port city, and start liberalising markets, then the wealth creation process should increase. There is no guarantee on that, but if you don't go through a process of opening markets up, then you will be in that trap potentially.
Technology is disrupting many industries. In Sri Lanka, with the advent of Airbnb, we have seen a disruption in the traditional leisure sector. What would be your views on how Sri Lankan corporates adapt on this technology disruption? Should we embrace technology, or what would be your thoughts on that?
I think on a micro basis, any technology is a disruption. So if you take a micro perspective of technology, then people will lose. So if you think of the Uber effect, which we've had globally, that displaces taxi drivers. But if you take a wider view, it increases competition. So the Uber effect is that it's put better consumerisation for taxi drivers. For example, in London, you couldn't pay by card, now you pay by card, you can pay by contactless technologies. So in the short term, there's always been disruptions on the individual. So I think there are a couple of aspects to that. What is the position of the consumer, and the consumer increases with that because competition creates more opportunities. So in terms of a societal effect, for example, in my country, you have people now who do more taxi journeys. So there is a loser, or the people who don't move with the technology. But the overall effect is an increase. So it's a macro increase in terms of technology. So for example, the Industrial Revolution started in Manchester, which is my hometown, and we used to have people smashing all the looms up. Right? Now actually, as we developed more technologies, it brought new jobs in and it created wealth. So you either resist technologies or you can embrace it. It will grow wealth over the medium term to long term.
Charles Darwin has quoted that not the most intelligent species nor the most strongest species survive, but it's a species that adapt would survive in the long run. Recently, CIMA had its top 10 most admired companies, and we bestowed the best of the best. Would these companies be there in the next 10 years down the line? What would be your views? How can the Sri Lankan corporates and also the SMEs come up in the long run?
So some of the organisations in Sri Lanka have been around for many years, so they've obviously got very successful models. The reality is, if they continue adapting, then they will survive. And I've been into a few of those organisations, and I'm impressed. But the reality is, part of going into the globalisation, you're opening yourself up to economic factors. So those economic factors then put pressure on the system. So therefore, the competition, is that a threat? Or do you actually grow to that competition and move onwards? So we've got closed economies, I think you've got a problem. You can survive. But if you go into a global economy, then there's going to be pressures on those organisations. And whether they are there in 10 years or not will be dependent on the board. And it comes back to your point, are they going to adapt to the changes that are going to be hitting? And the reality is the level of changes that are hitting many organisations is at an unprecedented state. So those top 10 companies, if they can adapt and adopt to the change, of course they'll be in the top 10. But if they don't, they won't. And then also you've got the competition coming through who will put pressure on their markets.
This kind of question that I would ask Steve applies mostly to the listed corporates. I also come from a listed company background, where we face severe pressure from the financial community to achieve the short-term quarterly targets. And at the board level, there is a dilemma in compromising the short-term profits with the long-term gains. What would you advise for corporates, especially for the boards, in taking the short-term myopia out and concentrate on the long-term survival?
I think that's an excellent question, but if you drive profits in the short term continuously, for example, in the UK, the car industry was in that situation where it drove, and I worked for the car industry, and if you keep going for short-term profits, what's the impact? You start lack of investment, lack of technology improvement, and the UK market went down because of arguably UK short-term growth. Where, for example, the German model, they've invested in the long term, and they have grown and survived into a global market dominant player. So that's a boardroom decision, and it's a difficult one. But take the car industry. If you invest in long term, you will survive in long term. If you just drive short-term profits, arguably you will not have a long-term future. So it's a balance. So that's why I have smart people on the board.
Finally, since time is running out, this would be my last question to you, Steve. CIMA is recognized as a global financial qualification. Outside UK, Sri Lanka ranks number 2, having a member database of over 5,000. The Sri Lankan government's ambition of making Sri Lanka a financial city hub for the South Asian region. How could CIMA partner with the public and the private sector to make this dream a reality?
I'm at a hotel, I won't name the hotel, and I'm looking at Port City, and I can see the vision that the Sri Lankan economy has for Port City. And if it's going to be a financial hub, it needs to invest in fintech and financial quality resources. So I think CIMA could be well placed to help the Sri Lankan economy move forward. I think we're quite enthused to actually help the Sri Lankan economy as a professional body. Whether you remain number 2 or England remains number 1, it probably won't, because we have other economies growing at a quicker pace. So for example, India has something like 2 million graduates entering the job market. So if you take a minor percentage of that, you can see the numbers. In China, we have 20 million people who are doing accounting jobs who are not qualified. So again, you just take 1% or 10% of that, and that just displaces not only Sri Lanka but the UK as number 1. So actually, what's the point of being number 1 and 2? Our business model is about business growth. So we have to disrupt what we do to enter into a global marketplace.
Thank you, Steve, for your valuable insights.
Right, you're welcome.
Stay tuned for the next Front Row episode.